Welcome to
The Curiosity of
Poison.
this episode.
Hemlock.
Our most dangerous recreation yet as we make poison.
One of us dies again. So we're hoping this isn't the last time we ever record.
Yeah, fingers crossed it won't be. Now, I actually did a poll on Twitter saying our next episode would be the most dangerous one ever. And should we attempt it? And we haven't released an episode since then, so people are probably worried. And but 87.5% of people said yes, do it.
Okay.
So we're not going to disappoint our fans, are we?
No.
But as we're talking about poison this episode, just a quick disclaimer. We'll be talking about poisons, their history and their effects. And obviously poisons are dangerous, toxic substances. And very, very dangerous, so never play with them, never consume them, or give them to others. During this episode, we will also cover several historical remedies, which probably aren't actually that effective and should not be taken. If you're poisoned, make sure that you seek professional medical advice immediately. So with all of that out of the way, shall we begin?
Yes.
So do you want to start with maybe testing some poison?
Already?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so what do you think a poison is?
Something that isn't good when you ingest it.
Yeah, so ingestion, yeah, so some sort of substance that you can eat or drink or something then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So you can define a poison by saying that is any substance that causes harm to a living organism. So they can be organic, such as plant toxins, or inorganic, such as lead or arsenic. And poisons can work in several different ways. So you have some, such as cyanide, which are enzyme inhibitors. So do you know what enzymes are and what they do?
They eat stuff and break stuff down.
Yeah, and they can help speed up reactions in your body, sort of chemical reactions. So they're a catalyst for it, and they help your body perform its functions more efficiently. So if you have something that inhibits that, it's going to stop your body working properly. Poisons may also interfere with neurotransmitters in your nervous system, so they disrupt the signals that are used for your body to function. One example is botulinum toxin, aka Botox, which paralyzes your muscles and will make you really limp.
Isn't Botox the most toxic thing?
According to some people, it is. Yeah, there's different ways of measuring what the most toxic thing is, but it's definitely up there. Some people say that, yeah, it is the most deadly thing. It's also what women like to inject into their face. Another common type of poison are those that cause cell damage by breaking down the cell membrane, which will then lead to the death of the cells. So examples of those might be snake venoms or radioactive substances. Now, some of these seem more obviously dangerous than others, so you're going to stay well clear of snakes that might bite you or radioactive material. But deadly plants, I mean, there could be some growing in your garden right now that you don't even know of, but are very, very dangerous and poisonous. One of the really important things to understand about poisons is that most substances are actually poisonous in the right or rather the wrong dose. As Perilous said, all things are poison and nothing is without poison. The dosage alone makes it so. Thing is not a poison. So what you're saying there is that anything's poisonous, like oxygen is poisonous. If you have too much of it, it's toxic to our body.
Mm-hmm.
So really it's the dosage, and something that's very, very dangerous in the tiny amounts is what we would define broadly as a poison. Now, Perilous, he's regarded as the father of toxicology, the study of negative effects caused to living organisms by chemical substances, and he was born around 1493 and given the name
Philippus Aurelius Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim.
He started studying medicine around the age of 16 in Basel, and then he later moved to Vienna where he earned his medical doctorate, and after his studies he travelled through much of Europe seeking what he called a universal knowledge. He was living in the world of the early Protestant Reformation, which was a time of great change and turmoil and questioning, and it seems to have inspired his views on medicine. And whilst he was gallivanting around Europe, he seemed to have a habit of upsetting people, usually by questioning their beliefs, and he was actually forced to move on several times. He was meant to be quite prone to bursts of abusive language as well, particularly those spouting untested theories. And one contemporary of his said, "The 2 years I passed in his company, he spent in drinking and gluttony day and night. He could not be found sober an hour or two together, in particular after his departure from Basel." He also wasn't a fan of Hippocrates' 4 humours: blood, yellow bile, black bile and phlegm. So what do you think he replaced those with then?
Earth, fire, water, air.
Nearly, yeah. He devised something called the Tria Prima. And for him, they would explain the workings of the human body. And he thought, why have 4 different substances when only 3 would do, which were sulfur, mercury, and salt? And through balancing those and God knows what, he said that you could basically do all sorts of medicine.
Just primary colours, but materials.
Pretty much, yeah. Now, Paracelsus Bombastus, as I think we should call him, thought that...
Can we just call him Bombastus?
Okay, yeah. Bombastus thought that all illness was caused by imbalances in these substances. And to me, that doesn't sound like a great leap forward from the biles, does it?
No.
It was more the way he was thinking about how they influenced the body that was pioneering, because Bombastus understood that everything has the potential to be poisonous. The dose is what makes the poison. So you take something that we usually see as positive and beneficial, such as vitamin A. Now, if you have too much vitamin A, your skin can literally peel off your body. Not very nice, is it? And this would happen to Arctic explorers who ate the livers of seals and polar bears.
I think that fact deserves some sort of sound effect. Ambulance.
Where is it there?
That was worth it.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, this happened to Arctic explorers eating the seals and livers of polar bears. So just 30 grams of polar bear liver could be enough for that horrifying outcome. He also saw that otherwise dangerous substances, when utilised in small doses, may actually be beneficial to us. What was important was very careful study, observation and testing. So his fundamental idea of the trio primer might have been very much at fault, but the processes that he used to try and understand it were not. And this actually laid the groundwork for modern toxicology, pharmacology, and the application of chemistry in medicine, and is incredibly important in our understanding of poison and disease today, down to how they work at this cellular and molecular level. And Bombastus said, "If disease put us to the test, all our splendour, title, ring, and name will be as much help as a horse's tail." So in other words, no help at all. It doesn't matter who we are. If we're poisoned, the fate will be the same for us. So should we take a look at our first poison?
Okay.
So if I say the name Socrates to you, do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
Who was he?
I'd probably say he's a Greek philosopher born around 470 BCE, and he's one of the big 4. Wait, no, the big 4's like earth, fire, water, and air. And he's one of the big foundational names of Western philosophy. I mean, off the top of my head.
Yeah, very good, mate. I'm impressed, actually. Your schooling is obviously doing something for you.
No.
Apparently, who are we talking about? Socrates. Apparently, he was also pretty annoying. Because what he really liked to do, a bit like Bombastus, was question people and challenge people, then find contradictions in their arguments. And if you do that enough, you're going to get up people's noses and really put them out of joint, aren't you?
Mm.
Now, one of his biggest followers was Plato. Have you heard of him?
Yes.
What can you tell me about Plato? Go.
He learnt from Socrates, and he is also another Greek philosopher, but later than 470 BCE.
Incredible. Yeah, and actually most of what we know about Socrates is from Plato's writings, because Socrates himself didn't really leave much. So have you heard of Plato's dialogues?
Yeah, they were philosophical texts written by Plato, obviously, primarily as conversations between Socrates and other characters. So basically, Socratarian fan fiction.
Nice. So one of them, which was called Apology, Plato has Socrates saying, "The young men who have the most leisure, the sons of the richest men, accompany me of their own accord and find pleasure in hearing people being examined. They often imitate me themselves, and they undertake to examine others. As a result, those who are examined by them are angry with me, instead of being angry with themselves. And they say, 'Socrates is the most abominable person and is corrupting the youth.'" So do you understand what was being said there?
Yeah. People don't like him because he's teaching other views, and then the younger people are taking on those views.
So what happens to those who question authority?
They get put to death.
And what is a good way to execute someone?
Beheading.
Or maybe more on topic this episode?
Poison.
Poison, yeah. So what we've actually done is recreated the poison used to kill Socrates, haven't we? Can you remember what some of the ingredients were?
Hemlock.
Yeah, so we went out searching for hemlock, or rather hemlock water dropwort, which isn't exactly the same plant as the hemlock used to kill Socrates, but it is related and probably just as deadly, and we don't have the proper hemlock over here. So we are down at the reservoir here looking for hemlock water dropwort. Now, this looks like it, Anton?
That does look like it.
Is this from your ID? Looks right.
Yep.
So it's got those flowers, but there's actually quite a few plants in this family because it's related to the carrot
Okay.
and parsnip. Add a little stream here that's a runoff from the reservoir. What can you see in it, Anton?
We have found some hemlock water, whatever worts,
Yeah, it's a really funny name.
in the middle of our drinking water stream.
Yeah, and remember I mentioned about the roots and that they look a little bit like parsnips,
Yeah.
except probably. They are actually called dead man's fingers.
Dead man's fingers.
Yeah, and they get exposed by the water sometimes where the soil gets washed away, and they look like the bloated fingers of a person pushing up through the ground.
Okay.
So another ominous name. And as we're famous for our recreations, and on the insistence of our Twitter poll, we must now reenact the death of Socrates.
Okay. Speaking of which, if you want to see us preparing the poison with actually quite a good video, that's over on our Patreon. You can get that for, I think, in the second tier?
Yeah, it'd be the second tier, yeah. About $5 a month, and you're going to help support the podcast.
Yep, you can even just do it for that one video. But not only do we have that, we've got whole bonus episodes, another few videos, so much more. So go do that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so yeah, go watch that video and then come back and listen to us trying the poisons. So we need to decide on our roles first. So Socrates was accompanied by some of his friends and disciples, and they would actually describe the effects of the poison on him, and so would he to them. So do you want to be Socrates or do you want to be the friends?
You know what? I think I'll take one for the team and I'll be Socrates.
Are you sure? I feel really bad. I think I should be Socrates.
Fine.
Okay, thank you.
He's lying. He doesn't feel bad.
Let me just open up the poison.
Look, 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 look.
I'm a little bit nervous about this, so it smells absolutely awful. Okay, it doesn't taste great. Let's see if I can get through this bit before it takes effect too much. Okay, in Plato's writings, Socrates remains very calm, leading some to believe that the poison given to him may have actually contained crushed opium seeds, which would have had a sedative effect. Luckily, we had some poppies in the garden, so we added those. Now, hemlock has no known antidote, and every part of the plant can kill you. When ingested, a highly toxic alkaloid called quinine enters your bloodstream. Now, quinine affects your nicotinic receptors in your nervous system, and these are really important for sending signals around your body to make your muscles function, including automatic functions such as breathing. And when poisoned with hemlock, you feel a slow paralysis travelling through your body. It starts at your extremities, like your hands or feet, which I'm definitely starting to feel now. And you feel its gradual spread as a tingling in your muscles, and which then start to convulse and grow weak, and then you become paralysed. It comes up through your stomach to your abdomen, and then you feel your chest muscles tingle and also start to slow as the breathing becomes harder. Now, what's really distressing about this is through all of this process, your mind actually remains very bright and conscious, so you're actually aware of everything that's happening to you. But by that time it's too late, and in your last moments your diaphragm ceases to move and your lungs become still, and then a foam forms and covers the corner of your mouth, like here. And
I'm seeing that one up.
yeah, and at this stage the sheer panic and inevitability and helplessness of your situation must lead to a bit of a mad and crazed thoughts in your head as your heart gives its final beat. And unable to take an oxygen, you die of asphyxiation.
Well, he's dead now, so I'll carry on myself. I'm not sure who's going to edit the episode, but oh well. What's we written in here? Script is awful. So, if there's no hemlock antidote, is there some way I can make myself immune to its effects, or protect myself from different poisons?
Mithridates.
Huh?
Mithridates, Anton.
Mithridates?
No. Mithridates.
Mithridates the Great was a Greek king who lived from 135 to 63 BCE and a fierce opponent to the Romans. It's said that in 88 BC he ordered the massacre of 150,000 Italian residents in western Anatolia in just a single day, although that number might be exaggerated a bit. No one was spared, not even the women or the children. The Romans were understandably unhappy and declared war on Mithridates. They would continue to battle on and off for the next 25 years. Being a king who has spent a quarter of a century antagonising the Romans would obviously leave you feeling a little paranoid about your own safety. Intrigue and treachery were part of court life. His father had been poisoned, possibly on his mother's order. So, in an effort to protect himself from would-be assassins, Mithridates began a new fitness regime. He exercised regularly to increase his strength, always carried a weapon, and took an interest in the dark art of toxicology. Fearing he'd be the victim of poisoning, he tried to learn everything he could. He studied and examined every toxin he could find and experimented with potential remedies. And how do you think he did that? Hello? Oh yeah, he's dead. He experimented on prisoners. And his hard work paid off, for it said he discovered a universal antidote capable of neutralising all known poisons, which you really should have taken. This antidote was named after him and called Mithridatium. He'd regularly ingest it to maintain his levels of protection. According to Pliny the Elder, his concoction contained 54 different ingredients, including anise, cardamom, ginger, turpentine resin, frankincense, and myrrh, but no gold. They were mixed with honey to create a chewable tablet. It may have even included microdoses of varying poisons and venoms, allowing his body to form an immunity to them. A bit like a vaccine. I think we've done an episode on vaccines, so go listen to that one as well. Other ingredients may have neutralised particular toxins or induced vomiting to purge the body. Pliny, however, was sceptical. He wrote,
"The Mithridatic antidote is composed of 54 ingredients, no two of them having the same weight, while some is prescribed 1/60th part of 1 denarius. Which of the guards, in the name of truth, fixed these absurd proportions? No human brain could have been sharp enough. It is plainly a showy parade of the art and a colossal boast of science."
Despite being invulnerable to all poisons, the hilt of his sword contained a lethal dose should he have to kill himself. And that day came in 63 BCE. With his latest war against the Romans going poorly, he gathered his 2 younger daughters. A Greek historian, Appian, continues the story.
They asked him to let them have some of the poison first, and prevented him from drinking it until they had taken some and swallowed it. The drug took effect on them at once, but upon Mithridates, although he walked around rapidly to hasten its action, it had no effect, because he had accustomed himself to other drugs by continually trying them as a means of protection against poisoners.
The 2 princesses died, but Mithridates didn't. Had his antidote made him immortal? There are 2 different accounts. Appian writes that he asked a friend to kill him with a sword so he'd not suffer the embarrassment of being paraded in a Roman triumph. But Cassius Dio said his death was brutally hastened by those loyal to his son. So what do you reckon? Do you think he really created a universal antidote? Are you going to contribute, or are you just going to lie there? He rose from the dead.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've drunk some milk now, so I'm feeling much better. Because mithridate remedy seems like a lot of effort, but don't worry, because the ever-reliable Pliny the Elder has plenty more. And one of his remedies for poison was drinking milk. And in his natural histories, he has a chapter dedicated to remedies for poisons. He writes, "If you're poisoned by henbane, mistletoe, hemlock, or the flesh of the sea hare, then ass's milk will neutralise the toxins." He didn't actually mention cow's milk, but as Guernsey cattle have the best milk in the world, it's actually had a remarkable restorative quality on me. He also mentions many more remedies, and I want us to rate how effective that we think they are out of 10. So,
We're doing a Rexy pod inside of this episode.
Poison Pod.
Terrible name.
Shall we begin? We're going to start with hare's rennet. Now, rennet is made from the stomach lining of young animals, and it contains loads of enzymes. And it's effective against poisonings and will even prevent injury from poisonous animals. It can also help you with toothache if you inject it into your ear. So do you think it will work?
I'm not quite sure. But it does seem to have the sort of opposite effect of what poisons are, so I might counter it.
Okay, so rating out of 10?
7, because I can sort of see an idea.
Okay.
That's without hearing the next ones, because the next ones could be like
True.
chickens.
Yeah. And maybe, like you said, the enzymes might have some effect. Perhaps they could break down the toxic molecules. Okay, next up we have the burnt hair and horns of a she-goat. Now, this is meant to help with venomous bites.
That's not going to work.
Now, you sure? Rating?
Already?
Yeah.
0.
0, okay. What about applying the stomach and also the intestines, I'm guessing, as it mentions dung of a she-goat to the point that it's been poisoned?
0.
0 again? Why?
It just doesn't work.
Poo's not going to cure you?
Actually, -1.
-1. It might induce vomiting. Okay, let's try a couple more, shall we? What about preventative measures to stop us getting poisoned in the first place? What about wearing amethyst or topaz to protect you from poison?
Right now I'm saying 1.
Okay.
Because I reckon the placebo of thinking that it might work of these and having it with you is going to have some effect.
Do you think placebos can actually stop a poison?
Yes.
Okay, shall we try a few more sensible ideas for dealing with poison?
Yep.
The first thing you should do is take immediate action. And you should also try and induce vomiting or purging. Now, if you've swallowed a poison, what you want to do is try and expel it from your body as quickly as possible. Now, Pliny, he also advises to avoid eating animals that are fed upon poisonous plants, even if they seem unaffected, as their bodies may still contain the poisons.
That's very wise.
And we see this quite commonly today with animals further up the food chain. They often contain dangerous concentrations of toxins that accumulated over time. Like, say, some fish in the water, they will have mercury and stuff in them.
It's like microplastics as well.
Yeah.
I swear we've done an episode on that.
Yeah, you did an episode on plastics.
Yep. Look at that episode as well.
So that's more good advice. And Pliny also mentions wearing masks to prevent the inhalation of fumes during various industrial processes. And there's a quote from him here from his writings. "The breathing passages should be protected during the operation, otherwise the noxious and deadly vapour of the lead furnace is inhaled. It is hurtful for dogs with special rapidity, but the vapour of all metals is so too to flies and gnats, owing to which those annoyances are not found in mines." So good advice, covering your mouth with a cloth or something. He actually describes using a bladder when working with cinnabar, which is a red mineral consisting of mercury sulfite, often used as a pigment, which we've also done an episode on.
Go listen to that one as well.
Yeah.
This is why we need to write the Everything Is Linked book.
Yes. Persons polishing cinnabar in workshops tie their face with loose masks of bladder skin to prevent inhaling the dust, which is very pernicious. So those last two substances, lead and mercury, now they're both toxic, but unlike hemlock, they don't act quickly, and they actually slowly accumulate in your body due to repeated exposure. And this has made them very hard to detect and determine them as a cause of illness or poor health, which shows that poisons can act in many ways. Now, one particularly horrible one is strychnine. I mean, even the name sounds like it's going to kill you. It's not a nice word, is it, strychnine?
Mm-mm.
And it's an alkaloid found in a plant of the Strychnos family, which is common to the tropics. And it's most concentrated in Strychnos nox vomica. So do you think you can translate that Latin?
Strychnos makes you vomit.
Pretty much, yeah. It means vomit not. Now, despite this being a really, really deadly poison, people actually used to use it as a bit of a pick-me-up because in very small doses it can leave you feeling energised. And in 1984 Olympics, Tom Hicks used it to help him win the gold medal in the marathon. And taking strychnine will actually increase the neural activity, which leads to increased muscular activity. But never, ever, ever, ever take it for that because it's more likely to kill you in a particularly horrible death. Do you want to find out how it kills you?
Okay.
As little as 100 milligrams, if they are ingested, within 15 minutes you'll start to feel your heart race, your blood pressure rises, your breathing becoming rapid, and you begin to go blue as the oxygen levels in your body drop. Sweat begins to drop from every pore. Your jaw begins to lock, and the panic then really starts to settle in as breathing becomes hard. An agonising pain erupts from your chest, and your back arcs to the extreme, the muscles suffering hypertension and spasming. You cry out, desperate for it to stop, sending foam and spittle flying as your face becomes the rictus grin of the insane, and all control is lost. You wish for death. And, with a high enough dose, that may be your fate, freed from agony after just 30 minutes. But if you're less lucky, 24 hours of maddening torment remain. And worst of all, the strychnine has made you hypersensitive, and you feel all of this with greater clarity than anything you've ever experienced before.
Okay, oh, that's a nice picture.
This is actually a painting. This is somebody who's suffering from something different there, but it's the same effects on the body. Yeah, so you can see that terrible kind of what you call like the rictus kind of grin and sardonic smile. But luckily, strychnine is also the bitterest substance we have ever discovered. I think you probably know from your survival guide, actually, that bitter taste of something that should be avoided. So we've got a case here from the 1800s of the Lambeth poisoner. Now, Thomas Neil Cream was one of the most notorious murderers of the 1800s, killing at least 10 people in 3 different countries. Some people think they may also have been Jack the Ripper, but as he was in prison at the time, it's highly unlikely, unless they let him out at night. During his 1892 trial, the body of one of his victims, Matilda Clover, was exhumed so it could be examined for evidence. Now, the pathologist removed parts of her liver and stomach and ground them into a paste. What do you think he did next?
Ate it.
He did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he tasted it. And noting its really distinctive bitterness, he administered some to a frog, and then he watched as it convulsed and died, which is a classic of strychnine poisoning. Now, Thomas Neil Cream, the murderer, was found guilty and hanged.
He looks like a very nice gentleman.
But we can't talk about poisons without mentioning one of the most famous of all, can we? Which is arsenic.
Arsenic, eaters of Austria. In Styria, high in the Austrian Alps, the locals began mining the mountains in the 1600s. Arsenic was contained in the minerals they smelted, and it would deposit a white powder which they collected. They then sprinkled this all over their food and dissolved it in drinks. No one knows exactly how or why this began. They'd start with just a tiny amount and slowly increase the dose until they were regularly consuming enough to kill a person. The locals said it aided their health and prevented disease. Women said it improved the complexion of their skin and gave them a more curvaceous figure.
Oh la la. Actually, what's oh la la in German?
When knowledge of this habit was reported upon by Swiss naturalist Dr. Johann Jakob von Tschudi in 1851, no one believed him. It would be considered a myth for nearly 25 years until, in 1875, at the meeting of the German Association of Arts and Sciences, 2 of the arsenic eaters were introduced to the audience. Dead. Not really. They both ate over 300 milligrams of arsenic. This must have shocked the onlookers, who wouldn't be expecting to see them again. Well, not alive anyway. But the next day, both men greeted the audience in perfect health. Tests of their urine confirmed the presence of arsenic. Trace elements of arsenic can be important for some creatures, stimulating the production of hemoglobin and increasing blood flow, which may explain why they said it gave them such great health benefits. An interesting side effect of eating so much arsenic is, after death, it slows decomposition as it kills the bacteria normally responsible for putrefaction. Bodies exhumed from graves over a decade after burial exhibited what's called arsenic mummification, and was still clearly recognisable to family members. Some say this is where the myth of the vampire originates.
Yes, and we all know that vampires love to drink blood, and arsenic helps it to flow. Now, arsenic is a naturally occurring element that has long been used as a poison. During the Renaissance, it was nicknamed inheritance powder. Its use was mostly limited to the upper classes, and it wasn't really commonly available to the general public. But in the 18th and 19th centuries, a revolution was happening. Chemistry was being born, and with it, a new understanding of the chemicals that made up our world. Check out our Elements episode. And this led to a slew of new products which were being produced at an industrial scale for the first time. And many of these would actually turn out to be deadly, because we were learning how to process and distill and extract different molecules and study their uses and effects. And when something was useful, or found to be useful, there's a big race to bring it to market. And there's a boom in the sale and use of chemicals in food, for pigments, as cosmetics and medications, and very often as rat poisons. So if you had a rodent infestation, you would have needed to have hired a rat catcher, and they were expensive and slow. But now you could do it yourself. And the most common ingredient in most rat poisons would have been arsenic. And there are brands such as Butler's Vermin Killer and Roughen Rats, which is basically arsenic with a bit of coal dust in it for colour. And they're really heavily advertised. And here's a few ads here for Roughen Rats. It looks like he's going to eat it there, which is not a sensible option, is it?
Also, their hair looks like a rat tail.
It does, doesn't it? What is that telling you? This is the text from one of the adverts. Roughen Rats. The thing desired found at last. Ask chemists, racers, or oilmen for rough on rats. It clears out rats, mice, beetles, roaches, flies, bedbugs, insects, ground moles, etc. So now poisons were coming into the hands of the common man, and with that the fear of murder was at an all-time high. So laws such as the 1851 Arsenic Act in Britain did control their use, and manufacturers began substituting the ingredients for less dangerous ones, but the fear remained. Historically, assassination through poison, due to its stealthy nature, was viewed as a particularly insidious and treacherous way to kill someone. It was also seen as the realm of women and the cowardly compared to the manly honour of combat. And whilst the history books are filled with female poisoners, they are equally filled with men seeking political gain or power. If you chop someone's head off with a sword, it's pretty clear what happened, but a slow-acting poison that takes them in their sleep? Now that's a different matter, isn't it?
Yeah.
And some poisons may give off symptoms in the victim, but these could easily be confused with more mundane, like causes of illness or death. And many poisonings could go completely undetected, their symptoms subtler and slower acting, maybe building up in the body over time until it led to a catastrophic failure. And this could confuse the nature of the death. How do you prove otherwise without sophisticated medical practices and equipment that are actually able to analyse the chemicals in the body? But one of the first written works to include details in forensics was The Elements of Medical Jurisprudence by Samuel Farr, published in 1788. And this book addressed the intersection between law and medicine, and it included 12 pages on poisoning, citing 6 types: acids, alkalines, narcotics, gases, plant, and animal. And it also contained a few simple tests that could be used to help you get detail over what may have been used to kill the person. It wasn't until the 1800s that doctors and chemists began to develop accurate tests when reliable evidence was required in the courtroom. And as more and more cases came to light, there was a heated debate about the reliability of the tests. I mean, how was it actually possible to discover an invisible cause of death? Teams of lawyers would argue for each side. Pioneering forensic scientists were called as expert witnesses, and they would become national celebrities, and high-profile cases would fill the papers, and they'd only further etch the fear of poison into the public imagination. By looking at the actual numbers in Britain, France and Belgium, the number of incidences was climbing in the 1800s, and they would reach their peak in the 1860s and 70s. So it's probably the prime time when you had all these highly manufactured poisons in like rat poison, etc. And it's estimated that in the 19th century, 20% of all murders in Britain were committed with poison.
When's Sherlock Holmes? I was thinking when they're saying so they've become national celebrities and stuff from discovering the poisonings.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, could be a big inspiration there of having this, very famous detective. And records from the Old Bailey record 83 poison trials between 1739 and 1878, with 63 of those recorded after 1839. So the numbers were increasing, but still not a great number for the amount of fear that was causing. And then you'd find in different countries they would have different top poisons. So the French loved phosphorus and copper salts, but the English preferred opiates and strychnine. But all of these were far behind the poisonous poster child, arsenic. So the actual percentages of poisonings was pretty low, and if they're so hard to detect, maybe they were in more common use than people realised, so better tests were needed. So enter James Marsh and the Marsh test. Now, he was born in 1794 in Kent in southeast England, and he was a very talented chemist, and he worked for the Royal Arsenal, developing fuses and generally improving the guns of the almighty Royal Navy. He was even an assistant to the super scientist Michael Faraday. But improving guns isn't going to unveil poisoners, and what it's best known for is the Marsh test, which was used to detect arsenic. Now, there was already an existing test, but it wasn't very reliable, as James discovered in 1833 when he was called as an expert witness in a murder trial. Now, John Bodle was accused of murdering his grandfather, George, and when Marsh performed the standard test of the day, he did find traces of arsenic, but by the time he presented his evidence to the jury, they'd actually deteriorated, and his proof was insufficient to convince the jury that Bodle was guilty, and he went free. Bodle would later confess to the murder, but by that time it was too late, and he could not be tried again. So really frustrated at this, Marsh knew that a better test was required, something that could prove beyond doubt that arsenic was the cause of death. So he spent the next few years hunched over his workbench, toiling away until in 1836 he perfected the process. And he used an arrangement of glass beakers, tubes and pipes. Marsh would take some finely minced tissue from the victim's body and heat it in acid. This would destroy the organic matter and just leave behind any arsenic in the solution. Next, zinc was added to this solution, which created arsine gas, and that smelled of garlic, as identified by Carl Wilhelm Scheele. You may remember from our pigments episode for Scheele's green.
Mm-hmm.
This gas was then ignited, which oxidized the arsenic back into arsenic and water vapour, and finally the arsenic would be collected on a cold ceramic bowl held in a jet of flame, and this would leave a silvery black stain where the arsenic was deposited. And this test was really, really accurate. And it was able to detect quantities of as little as 2/100th of a gram. So think of our scales that we use for cooking and how little a gram of flour is. This is 1/200th of that. How do you even invent that process? It's amazing, isn't it? Think all the steps it goes through. How did people get that knowledge? What James Marsh did was incredible. I mean, he's working with something that is impossible to see, and it's like searching for a needle in a million haystacks and devising a chemical magnet to pluck them out. And when you do find the needle, how do you even know it's the correct one? It doesn't have a label on it. It's only through the work of thousands of people over generations, collecting, testing and sharing knowledge that we can understand the fundamental building blocks of life, the universe and everything.
42.
Yes. But there has been times in history when science was art. And one of the first trials using the Marsh's test was the Lafarge poisoning in France, 1840. and it really captured the public imagination, and it filled the daily newspapers with the reports of the trial. Now, Marie Fortuné Lafarge was accused of using arsenic to murder her husband, and the Marsh test would be used to prove her guilt. And such was the public fever for the case that actual demonstrations of the Marsh tests would be carried out in saloons and in public lectures, and it was even recreated in a play for a while. We were hooked on the new wonders of science and chemistry, and finally safe from the spectre of invisible poisons.
Yes. That was poisonous.
Well, what do you think about how people can come up with things like the Marsh test?
I don't know. First, you got to understand what the problem is and work out how to solve the problem. I think that's actually quite insightful. So if you learn anything from this episode, learn that you have to learn what the problem is, then solve the problem.
That is very sound advice, yes.
Mm.
Now, it's been a long episode, so shall we finish off with the famous Anton?
I've been here the whole time.
With a different famous Anton.
Okay.
Now, whilst you listen, I have a delicious treat for you to eat. Aren't you lucky?
No.
And you're not worried as it's a poison episode and I'm giving you food, are you? Wait there, I'll be back in a second.
What is that?
All right, be careful, it's hot. Right, let me just sit down again.
Oh, that smells like porridge.
You can put some honey on it if you want.
Yeah. Do you want some?
Do you have a spoon?
Yeah.
I don't have a spoon.
That's stupid.
Okay, as you can probably hear, Anton is clinking his spoon as he mixes the honey into the mixture I've just given him. And he doesn't know what this is yet. Has he tried it?
Mm-hmm. As I meant to.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it.
It's like jelly. But honestly, it just tastes like honey.
Okay, time for a famous Anton. So Anton von Storch was born in 1731 in southern Germany. Haven't even started eating yet. In Germany. His mother died when he was only 3 years old and his father when he was just 10. So his early years were spent as an orphan in a Viennese poorhouse. But despite all of this, he and his brothers actually got a good education. Melchior became a professor of anatomy at the University of Vienna, and Matthias became the physician to the Grand Duke of Tuscany. Now, Anton, he would actually treat Empress Maria Theresa, one of the most powerful women in Europe, for smallpox. Listen to our episode on that. And later become her personal physician.
I think we've linked 5 episodes.
We have. Everything is linked. But how did Anton von Storch relate to poison? Did he try and murder the Empress in order to sway the power politics of Europe?
Yes.
No.
No.
Exactly. This famous Anton is known as the father of experimental pharmacology, and he formed the foundation of what we now call clinical trials. He was interested in the medicinal use of poisonous plants. So remember what Paracelsus bombastic?
Bombastus.
Bombastus said that it's the dose that makes the poison. So could the powerful effects of these deadly plants be used for good? After all, fake remedies have used them for years. But von Storch wasn't a believer in the doctrine of the signatures. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, the doctrine of the signatures is the idea that you can understand a plant by what it resembles. So walnuts look like brains, so they must be good for the brain.
Yeah, we've done a little bit on that in other episodes.
Yeah.
Probably in Court's medicine episode. There's another episode.
Another one, yeah. The plant eyebright looks like eyes, so it clearly helps you with eye infections, etc. And things that look like hearts are going to help your heart. For Anton, this wasn't enough. What he wanted was real evidence, not just fake beliefs and anecdotes. So what he did was he began testing and analysing plants such as hemlock and henbane using a 3-step process. First, he'd test the poisons in animals, then he'd test them on himself, and then he'd test them on his patients, keeping detailed records of the dosage and the effect. And in 1760, he published a book by the title of A little book which shows hemlock not only a safe for internal use, but also at the same time a very useful medicine in many diseases which may up until this time be declared as impossible to cure.
That's the whole book.
That is the whole book. It is a very little book, but a very long title. And in this, he studied how hemlock could be used to treat things such as joint pain and spasms, but crucially in small controlled doses. This wasn't his only little book. He had published several others in different plants. For instance, he wrote about foxgloves, which are poisonous.
Yep, they are. Tested by me. Not true.
Which makes me think of that X-Files episode. That's when I first fell in love with poisons.
No one's going to know what you're talking about.
And he observed that they could have beneficial cardiac effects. And today we extract digoxin, a chemical which is used to help treat people with heart failure or heart issues. Now, it's actually really difficult to find any information in English about how effective his medicines are. But I did find one German article which I translated, which said that... Do you want to read this? You're good at German.
Stork was I accidentally hit my spoon. Stork was one of the first to stimulate the pharmacodynamic testing of the drugs and tried to introduce the principle of the similarity rule into therapy by trying to justify his theory as follows. If strazonium makes healthy people mentally ill through confusion of mind, why can one not make an attempt to use it to change the mind of the mentally ill? That's really good German.
That is amazing. I actually thought that you had become the other Anton.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. You're right. In other words, if something makes the sane crazy, can it make the crazy sane? So maybe not all of his ideas or treatments were effective, but the key takeaway is the process, a measured approach of trial and observation. And what seems obvious now was a revolution at the time, that the only reliable way to test anything is through testing it.
Wow.
I know, incredible.
That took until, when was it? Like
1870, was he?
To work out?
1760. And now we use this process to discover the drugs that have improved to save countless lives around the world. Incredible, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so did you enjoy your little treat I gave you?
It was it was just like jelly. I don't know, Orbeez. That's probably how I describe it. But food.
Well, this picture I have here is what you just ate. You just had tapioca, which is made from the tubers of the cassava plant, which is native to South America, like potatoes.
Oh yeah, another episode.
Now today it's grown throughout the tropics and is a key crop for over 500 million people in the developing world, as it's very drought resistant and can grow really well in poor soils. It can be used in savoury dishes or sweet dishes like you just had, or it can be made into flour for bread and cakes. And you can open up that towel I put in front of you now, so you can see what it looks like before it's cooked. Ow.
End of ASMR.
You just tripled our subscribers with that.
Yeah. That should be Patreon only.
Yeah. Right, put it down. Yeah, so do you recognise it from some of your playing cards?
It looks like boba. Like the boba playing cards. Oh, is this the 8th episode link? Because we've done an episode on playing cards.
We have.
And that counts as 2 because we got the interview and the episode, no?
Yes. Incredible work.
We're just too good.
We are. Yeah, so what's it called? Tapioca.
Yep.
It actually has really, really poor nutritional value. And I was going to say look at the nutritional information on the packet, but as I say noisy, I've got a picture for you here. So can you just go through that little thing for us, please?
Total fat, 0 grams. Saturated fat, 0 grams. Trans fat, 0 grams. Cholesterol, 0 milligrams. Sodium, 10 milligrams. Ooh. Total carbohydrate, 12 grams. No sugars or dietary fibre either. Or protein, 0 protein either.
Yeah, so one serving gives you basically 0% of your daily requirement of anything.
So it's like just eating nothing.
Yeah. And what was it, 500 million people depend on this daily for their food requirements. But why are we talking about this in a poison episode, Anton?
I don't know.
Do you want to find out?
Yeah.
It's because cassava tubers contain cyanogenic glycosides, which, when they react with the enzymes in your saliva, release hydrogen cyanide.
And you tell me that after we've eaten it?
Yeah, after you've eaten it, yeah, which is highly toxic. Like many plant-based poisons, it has a bitter taste. But if you have sweetened your tapioca with honey and sugar, you might not detect it. What did I tell you to put on your tapioca?
Honey.
Did you taste any bitterness?
No.
Have I tried my tapioca?
No. So you tricked me.
But luckily, what you've just had has been processed to remove the toxins through various methods such as soaking, mashing, heating and drying.
Okay.
Which is very similar to how potatoes are prepared before the safe varieties were bred. See episode
46.
We're lucky because I can just buy that pre-processed. But imagine if you had to prepare that every day by hand, as millions of people have to do.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, it'd be, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Something that is your staple diet food. It basically gives you no sustenance, and you've got to go through massive efforts to it. And it goes to show that poisons are often closer to the everyday than we realise. Humanity's long connection with poisons is a tale of both our dark and our light sides, as well as our endless curiosity. From the punishments of antiquity to the murderers of the 1800s, it's long held our fascination and our fear. But its use has never been as common as the sensationalised headlines would have you believe. And through the hard work of countless individuals, we have mastered it to make the inedible edible and the toxin the lifesaver. Our fascinations with poisons isn't going to fade anytime soon, so just be careful what you choose to eat. So, what do you think of poisons now, mate?
Much more interesting than I originally thought. And that they're not just poison. They can be used correctly. I think Bombastus was right in saying that they're poison, everything's poisonous in wrong amounts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I always find amazing is when you get some animals which will be immune to some sort of poison, then another one eats it, so it's very much, they'll be killed by it, so it's very much whatever chemistry is going to happen in your body.
Mm-hmm.
But as we said at the beginning, poisons are dangerous, so we are highly trained professionals, so we knew exactly what we were doing today, but please do not try and replicate any of our experiments and try poison yourself. If you find yourself feeling ill, please seek medical attention immediately. And
follow those steps or whatever it was, for if you have been poisoned that we mentioned earlier in the episode.
Yes. Okay, that's the episode over. So we've got a couple of promos to do now.
Yeah.
The ancient and esoteric Order of the Jackalope is a secret society devoted to sharing strange stories and amazing facts. No topic is off limits. Hidden history, Hollywood, hoaxes, frauds and scams, weird sciences, cults and clones. If it's interesting or entertaining, we'll do an episode about it. Join us this series for episodes about Civil War spies, boat cults, fake mediums, cloud dongs, and more. What's a cloud dong? You'll just have to listen to find out. Look for us at orderthejackalope.com. That's orderthejackalope.com with hyphens between the words, or wherever fine podcasts are sold.
What's a cloud dong?
I don't know. You just have to listen, like you said.
Yeah, we'll have to listen. And the Order of the Jackalope are also going to be speaking at Intelligent Speech
2025,
which is on February the 8th, I think. So make sure you go to intelligentspeechonline.com. Let's check that.
Live.
Yeah, so if you go to intelligentspeechonline.com, you can buy tickets to the conference, which in 2025 is on the theme of deception. And we've got some really cool speakers coming up this time. And we'll play the trailer for you in a minute. So make sure you have a listen to that and buy your tickets and use the promotional code CURIOSITY to get 10% off at checkout. And if you buy them in the next couple of weeks, you can also get them for $20 rather than $30 as well.
So like a little early bird thing.
Exactly, yeah. Early bird tickets are now on sale, so go get them.
Deception, lies, fakery, fraudulence, and forgery. This is what Intelligent Speech 2025 will be bringing you.
We are delighted to announce 3 outstanding keynote speakers. We have Joe Hedwig Tuwise from the awesome Fake History Hunter Twitter feed and author of Fake History. We also have Otto English, author of Another Fake History and Fake Heroes, and presenter of the Utter Bollocks podcast.
And finally, we have podcasting legend and intelligent speech stalwart, Wesley Livesey, host of the History of the Great War and the History of the Second World War podcasts.
Intelligent Speech 2025. Deception will be taking place on the 8th of February 2025. Go to intelligentspeechonline.com to find out more.
I quite like, we've just loaded up the website, and I like how in the hero photo, the biggest word is just cocaine drops.
Used for toothache.
Yeah.
Yeah, another example of chemicals being used in different ways.
I guess so.
So, thank you very much. Sorry it took so long for us to get to this episode, but, dealing with poison, it's a very dangerous topic, and we had to train and prepare ourselves through having mithridatum, whatever it's called.
Yep. And what we didn't do, we actually edited out the month gap between you dying and then waking back up. So that's one of the reasons why it took a bit longer as well.
We did, yeah. That was awful. So thank you very much. Where can you find us? I mean, what can people do to follow us and support us, Anton?
They can leave a review wherever they're listening.
That'd be great, actually. Please do that, because it really helps us. And we'll read out the best ones. Might even send you a t-shirt.
Yeah, actually. They can get a ticket for Intelligent Speech with code Curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
They can find us on X at
CuriosityOfPod.
Our website,
CuriosityOfPod.com. You can go to Patreon and follow us there.
Patreon's exciting. We've got lots of things for this episode. Like I mentioned earlier, we got the video that we've done on creating the poison. We've got a sort of mini ranking
episode. Yeah, rankings and poisons.
Of poisons, and a secret which you have to subscribe to our Patreon for.
I think that's probably it. We'll try and be a little bit more regular with our episodes. I'll do something less dangerous than poison next time, I think.
Yep.
So thank you very much, and leave a review, tell your friends about us. Don't try this at home, the poison bit that is, and see you soon.
Oh, and don't try the podcasting bit at home either, because more competitors.
Yeah, there's too many already, you're right, yeah.
We'll have to eliminate you.
Yes, and we know how now.
Bye.
Bye, love you.
No.
Bye.
Not anymore. He's only gonna hear this when he's editing the episode. Maybe you can stick this in at the end or something, I don't know. Hopefully it actually picks up on this. Daddy sounds like poo. Do, 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 do. He sounds like poo. He's a rubbish co-host. He is awful at podcasting. You want them to hear that?
Hear what?
Nothing. Why did he laugh? Oh.
Fuck this.